Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the award-winning official podcast of the Houston chapter of Public Relations Society of America. And I'm your host, Veronica Stoker. I have the pleasure of introducing you to some of our incredible members here that we have in the Houston chapter. And we're going to go ahead and get this episode started and introduce you to Ms. Vannessa Wade with Connect the Dots Public Relations. But before we bring her on, let's take care of some housekeeping. That means I need you to hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay so that you can stay connected with our members. And if you are listening or watching rather on LinkedIn or Facebook, drop us some comments so that we know you're here and we can circle back with you. So with that, let me introduce you to Miss Vannessa Wade. Welcome to PRSay.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to Connect the Dots PR.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. When I was in college, I was doing a presentation and someone walked up to me afterwards and said, "Have you ever considered a career in PR?" And I said, "What's PR?" And she said, "Well, we're having a meeting tonight. I promise. We're having a meeting tonight. You should come and check it out." And I went to the meeting, which was a PRSA meeting,
Mhm.
because again, we're in college. And that person was Kelly Pevenchek, who went on to be the president of PRSA maybe 10 years or so later. So
Mhm.
that's how all of that came about.
I love it. Yes, and that's often the source for some of us. We're like, "Well, what is PR exactly? Can somebody
Right.
explain that to me?" So tell us a little bit about your journey. You graduated from college. How did you get to where you are?
Oh, it's like going to a haunted house that has rides and all these different things. It wasn't a clear path, at least for me. It was working a series of jobs because I knew I wanted to be in communications, but I wasn't sure what part because it's so vast, it's so big. And so started out with an area nonprofit, worked there a bit, and then a new nonprofit came over and they said, "Hey, Vannessa, would you like to work for us?" And so I became director of communications, enjoyed it, really fell in love with the PR component of it. And
Mhm.
so about maybe 5 or 6 years later, I ended up just starting my own. I was in between opportunities, and a friend of mine said, "Vannessa, you can do this on your own. You know what you're doing." And so I did. And here we are 12 years later.
Oh, I love it. And so what's your specialty at Connect the Dots?
Yeah, that's a great question. So starting out, it was a lot of nonprofit.
Mhm.
And so now it's more media relations, community relations. And I say community relations because I really enjoy community for people to understand what products, what services, what activities are available to them so they can live a healthier life, so they can live a
Mhm.
happier life. And so now those are some of the things I do. So public relations, community relations, crisis communications.
Very good. And so what type of space are you in? I know you started out with a nonprofit, and that makes sense. You had a nonprofit background. Have you branched out into any other spaces, any other industries?
Definitely. So leaving nonprofit, and it's funny because I felt whenever I would try to get out of nonprofit, something would grab me by my foot and,
Oh, yeah.
and pull me back in. And I think that's for a lot of people. You enjoy the work, you enjoy the results, you enjoy being able to tell stories in an efficient and effective way. And then I began to say, "Oh, well, I want to do some things in medical." And so that was some copywriting for a hospital. And I said, "Oh, well, maybe aerospace." And so
Mm.
doing some things in aerospace and then higher education. So colleges and universities, helping them understand branding and branding essentials, but how to do it as a student. When you graduate, sometimes without an internship, sometimes without work history, how can you still brand yourself for that next opportunity?
Mhm. Oh, that's great. And tell me, how do you really focus on that branding and get right in? I'm assuming you're diving right in with the person or the client, and so you're learning all about their space. How do you personally make all that come to life in that branding? Because I think that's something we don't talk enough about, and everyone's got their own strategy. And so I'd love to know more about yours.
Sure. Well, I know people can't see it, but I'm wearing a polka dot shirt. So that's one of the ways I brand myself. I
I'm
am my
always wearing
brand.
pink. I'm always
And
wearing pink.
right. And it's funny because people will see me and they may not know my name is Vannessa, but they'll say, "Hey, connect the dots," which is fine with me because it shows me branding works. So for me, it's sitting down with them and saying, well, what are some of your goals? Like on a
Mhm.
perfect day, what would your situation, your finances, or whatever it is look like? And then how
Mhm.
can we brand ourselves as such? And to be real, we all are a brand, no
Yes.
matter what we do and how we do it. So even think about people you knew in high school. That's how we remember them. That's how
Yeah,
they
that's
were
so
branded.
true. Yeah.
20, 30 years later, people
Mhm.
are like, hey, watch your purse, or that person was the smartest in school. That may not be relevant anymore, but that's the power of branding. And so I start with, what do you want to be known for? Some of those core essentials. And if you want to be known for drawing rainbows and just
Yeah.
drawing rainbows, then let's figure out how to make you the expert in drawing rainbows. Meaning that's what you need to promote, that's what you need to talk about, that's what people need to see when they meet you in person. So helping people understand your brand is never off. Even if you're in a store, people are going to approach you about
Yeah.
a particular issue or about a particular event. And so just really helping them understand what a brand is from the very beginning.
I love that. That is so true. And I think that people who invest time early on in those conversations are going to get a lot more leverage from the content that they're creating and the content that's being created for them. So I think you bring up some really good points. Vannessa, when you are working with young folks, maybe who are in PRSA, or you get an opportunity to mentor somebody or give advice, what is it that you tell them about communications and what they need to know?
Oh, there are so many things. But one, I say you have to be willing to go with the flow, because one minute maybe you're setting up an event, the next minute you are escorting someone to an interview, the
Yep.
next minute you are saying, hey, this isn't an actual fact. Can we have this information updated? So being able to go with the flow. And then also being a good listener.
Yeah.
Um, I
True.
have a quick example that I would like to give. I was working on a story for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and
Okay.
the gentleman was telling me about breast cancer and different things that he had gone through, and I was, listening. I had a few follow up questions. The bigger story was um, he didn't know he had breast cancer. He went to his doctor
Oh, wow.
that he's had for 20 years. The doctor said, "Oh, that's just fatty tissue. Don't worry about it."
Oh my
He
gosh.
ended up getting a second opinion. They said, no, this is cancer. And immediately, the process started. And so being able to listen. So while it was a cancer story or male breast cancer story, it became more about having a follow up, having the courage to get a
Yeah.
second opinion,
Yeah.
having the courage to go to your doctor and say, I don't know if that makes sense. So just again, being able to go with the flow, being able to listen, and then being able to follow up with really good questions.
I think that's really great advice, and knowing that we have to be agile in our work is key to making sure that the client's objectives are being met. Um,
Mhm.
and so we have to, I tell people all the time, it's like a wedding. They don't know what was supposed to happen. So if that one pager didn't get printed, it's not the end of the world. The event is still going to happen. Now you still got other collateral. They didn't know that there was a one pager supposed to be at every on every chair. So it's not
Right.
that big of a deal. And just
I
go
love
with the
that.
flow.
I love that because sometimes we feel it's the end of the world
Yeah.
when we when we do something wrong. And in that moment it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
In that moment we're really upset. But in the grand scheme of things, it's breathe. It's going to be okay because you want to enjoy yourself. And then a lot of times we stress over those details, Veronica, and people didn't even notice.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're like, oh, I didn't even notice.
you're, you're like, we put a lot of energy into that.
Hmm.
Well, I think that's great. That's great advice. So if someone was considering joining PRSA at the professional level, what would you encourage? Why would you encourage them to do so?
It opens you up to
Mm-hmm.
other people in other professions,
Mm-hmm.
but also different backgrounds. No one knows everything. And so,
Yes.
because I've been involved in PRSA for such a long time, I'm able to connect with people that know more than I do about a particular subject.
Yeah.
And then I'm also able to be the subject matter expert in some instances. And so, outside of the connections, you also build friendships, people that you can call and say, hey, what do you think about this opportunity? Or I'm putting together an RFP. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So it goes beyond here's how I can land my next job or here's how we can partner. If you allow it to, and if you want it to, it can lead into actual friendships.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so true. So, Vannessa, are you looking to meet new folks? Are you looking to grow in partnerships? What is your goal in right now with where you are in PRSA? And if members want to reach out, how can they do that?
All the time. All the time. So if a person wants to meet and go on a walk, I'm open for that. If they want me to come to their office building to see something they're working on, I'm open to that as well. And they can find me on LinkedIn, Vannessa Wade. So that's VANNESSAWADE. Or they can find me on Facebook, where I often share a lot of tips and tools about communications.
Love it. Okay, that's awesome. We will make sure that all of your digital content links are in the show notes. So, members, if you want to connect with Vannessa and you're looking to just grow your network, she's got some great experience and would be a great partner. Vannessa, thank you so much for joining us on PRSA today.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You bet. All right, everybody. Make sure you connect with Vannessa. She is always looking for contacts. You can find her on LinkedIn. Information's in the show notes. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of PRSA. Make sure you join us next week. And if you hit subscribe, you'll be reminded when our next episode drops. We are always bringing you great content so that you can grow your network in our Houston chapter. So with that, we'll wrap up this episode.